This is Gemara Nedarim Daf Ayin Gimel. All the learning for this month, the month of Teves, has been generously sponsored as an incredible schos aliyah neshama for, Aryeh Leib and Rav Yaakov B'siyat Shemaya. The learning of the entire Chabura should bring Aryeh Leib and Rav Yaakov to the higher in place in Gan Eden Shalmala. Again, apologies for the lateness of today's Shir Erev Shabbos. Hopefully, we'll be able to record today's and tomorrow's, so that Shabbos this year will be able to be up before Shabbos. B'siyata Dishmaya. And I thank everyone again for all the encouragement and well wishes. Baruch Hashem, we are back on the mend and ready to learn together. So we're holding on the bottom of Ayin Beis and Beis. We're holding on two lines of the wide lines, Tashima. We're about to bring a raya. Now let's just remind ourselves, what are we bringing a raya to? The raya we're bringing to goes back a little bit higher up as the Gemara began. Rami Bar Chama had a shayla, and the shayla of Rami Bar Chama was, what is the story of a Baal? Can he be Mayfair Beloi Shmiya? Do we say Vishama Isha is Dafka or Lav Dafka? Tashema, says the Gemara. Let's delve into one more time, trying to bring a raya, whether the husband has to hear the vow of his wife in order to be made for the Nedarim or not. Says the Gemara, Ha'imer Lapetropis. If someone says to an apotropis, Kol Nedarim, Shenoderes Ishti, all the Nedarim that my wife is Noider, Mikan Va'ad Sha'avim Makam Ploini, from now until I come to a certain place, Hafer, they should be annulled. So he tells the administrator, we know an apotropis is someone that takes care of one's affairs when he goes away, etc. So he tells the apotropis that if my wife makes any Nedarim, from now until I come back, I'm going on vacation, you, the apotropis, have the power to be made for them. V'hafer la, and lo and behold, the apotropis is made for them. So Yachol, says the Gemara, I would have thought ye mufarim, that they are mufar. Talmud Leimar, says the Gemara, Isha yikimenu v'isha yifeirenu. Says the Gemara, no. The pasuk says Isha, referring to the husband, has to be the one to mekayim it. Isha yifeirenu, the husband has to be the one to be made for it. Divri Rabbi Yeshaya. So Yeshaya learns that the husband is the only one that has the sole power of afaris, and it comes to darim of his wife. Amr Rav Yonasan, says Rav Yonasan, 3 lines from the bottom of Ayin Beis and Mid Beis. Ma'atzina v'chol ha'tayra kula shlucha shel adam kamaisai. The obvious rule, we all know this rule, all over the Torah, we have a rule that one shliach could act as himself, and therefore, so too over here, the shliach could act as himself, and therefore the apotropis could, yes, be made for the Nedarim. So the Gemara didn't yet prove the shayla. Continues the Gemara. Va'afilu Rav Yeshia, and even Rav Yeshia, who says that no, only the husband has the power to do it. Loi ka'amar, Ella was only saying mishum d'gzeiras hakasavu. Because Rav Yeshia says, what should I tell you? I have a pasuk of Isha yikimenu v'Isha yifeirenu. Aval dekulei alma. But what is clear, barring the pasuk, and according to the opinion of Rav Yonasan, what would everyone agree to? Shlucha shel adam kamaisai. Everyone would ostensibly agree that we have this klal, that one shliach has the same status as himself, and therefore, the apotropis will be able to be made for the Nedarim. End of Braisa, end of inferences from the Braisa. And here's the knockout punch. V'halei shmi'alei. Seemingly, the whole debate in this Braisa, do we yasei shliach shel adam kamaisai? Do we hold it on the pasuk? But no one seems to be bothered by the fact that the husband did not hear the neder, because the husband is overseas. Now I'm sure many inquiring minds are right now wondering, 1 second, what about the fact that the apotropis heard the neder? Now this is a large point of discussion in the Mefarshim. There's a fascinating Rush, and the Rush says, Yisayin shlichos, that a shlichos could only do something positive for you. But to hear shemeya, shmiya, is a passive act, says the Rush, and therefore you can't do that on his behalf. Either way, says the Gemara, we have a raya, you don't have to hear the neder that is made. Answers the Gemara in the top of Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, says the Gemara, no raya. Hachanami, here also, Damar Leilach Shemona Mayfair law. Similar dichoy, similar pushing off the raya like we saw yesterday. The case here is discussing where the husband said, when I hear about them, then you should be made for them. So ask the Gemara the same question that we asked yesterday, so why don't we simply be made for them when he hears it? Why does he have to tell the apotropis now before he leaves, that any neder that you hear from now until I return should be mufar? Answers the Gemara, who savar? Dilma materna. Similar to what we saw yesterday, that he feels that what? That maybe he's going to be tired, that when he hears about the neder, he's not going to have the state of mind, he's not going to have the presence of mind, he's not going to have the time to actually be mefer b'yom shammai in the day of the neder, and therefore he wants to preempt it now in order to ensure no nedarim go unresolved. And the Gemara, in actually similar nedarim fashion, we'll call it, is a cliffhanger. No answer, no raya, and the Gemara moves on to a new shayla. Boi Rami Bar Chama, a new shayla, but very related to the previous shayla. 3 lines down, Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. Chayresh, a deaf mute, or actually over here, it's referring to seemingly a simple, not simple, but one that is deaf, even though generally chayresh means a deaf mute. Over here it seemingly is referring to one just cannot hear. Boi Rami Bar Chama. Chayresh Ma'u Sheyifer Le'ishtay. What is the status of a chayresh being made for the nedarim of his wife? So now the Gemara says, 1 second. If we would have answered the previous shayla, it would have helped us here. If the answer to the previous question was what? That the husband could indeed be made for without hearing the neder. What? Maybe that's only in the case of the husband. Why? Mishum devar mishmahu. Because the husband could hear. Meaning the Gemara is explaining that even if you'd be paisha the previous shayla, that what? The husband could be made for without hearing. How could the husband be made for without hearing? Because he doesn't need that vishama isha's lav dafka. But says the Gemara, maybe that's only because the husband is capable of hearing. But over here, in the case of a chayrish that's not capable of hearing, of a chayrish lavar shmiyo mishmahu, 6 lines down, I give an aleph, haynu dir Rav Zera. It will not work like the very famous Yisaid of Rav Zera, that if you look at the side of your Gemara in the Mesiras Hashas, you'll see a plethora of Mar Mekaymes to this Yisaid of Rav Zera, that what? Ta'amar Rav Zera kol haroyi lebila, ein abila ma'akeves bay. Anything that's able to be mixed, you don't have to actually mix it. But if it's not capable of being mixed, then bila ma'akeves bay, then mixing it hinders its performance. So therefore, says the Gemara, maybe a husband who has the capability to hear, that's why he doesn't have to hear. But in our case, where there's no capability to hear, in Roi Labila, it's not capable. Therefore, Bila Ma'akeves Bay will not work. That's one side of the coin. Asks Rami Bar Chama, Oidelma Vishama Isha Loy Ma'akif. Or maybe the whole reason why the husband doesn't have to hear is a very simple. The Torah said Vishama Isha, and that's Lav Dafka, it's Lav Ma'akif, and therefore even a Chayrish that cannot hear will be able to be made for the Nedarim. So the Gemara leaves an open-ended question, asks Rami Bar Chama the following shayla. So Amar Rava about 8 lines from the bottom. First word of the line is Isha. Comes along Rava with a simple teretz. Tashema v'shama Isha. Rava has a brisa. The brisa says, and the husband should hear. Prat leisha's chayresh shema mina. That comes to exclude very simply an Isha's chayresh, the wife of a chayresh, that the husband is a chayresh that cannot be made for the nedarim. An explicit brisa that a chayrish cannot be made for the nedarim. But is this a raya back to our previous shayla? Of course not, because of the other tzad of the Gemara. This is merely a raya that a chayrish cannot be made for, but maybe one does not actually have to hear, and we do not answer the first shayla of the Gemara. And we continue 6 lines to the bottom, Ibayluhu, with another shayla. We'll call this the third shayla of the day. Number 1, does husband have to hear? Number 2, what about a chayrish? Number 3, if a husband has 2 wives, can he be made for 2 of his wives nedarim simultaneously? Do we say Isa dafka? Isa, says the Torah, in the singular form, and therefore it means he could only be made for 1 neder of your wife, and therefore dafka only 1 and not 2 simultaneously. Olav dafka. And again, to this shayla we have a simple teretz. Amar Ravina, says Ravina, Tashema. Say Ravina, we're not allowed to allow 2 saitas, 2 women that are suspected of adultery. We don't let them drink the mei saita after you erase the Shem Hashem in the bitter waters. We don't let them drink at the same time. Why not? Says the Tanakama, gas bechaverta. Because when one sees her friend drinking, she's going to give her encouragement. And you know what? Could very well be that one of them was innocent. So she's drinking with confidence. The other one is guilty. But she's getting encouragement for the other one, so we don't let 2 people drink simultaneously. a din in Hilchos Saita that B'siyat Shmaya, when we get to Maseches Saita, we'll learn in depth. Rav Yehuda Omer, Loi min hashamayim uzeh. Says Rav Yehuda, no, this is not the reason that we don't let them drink simultaneously. Elo mishom shenemar v'hishke oisa levada. Says Rav Yehuda, Gzeres HaKasav, the pasuk says oisa in the singular, only one could drink, and therefore proves the Gemara to our Shaila, our third Shaila of the day. Can a husband be made for the Nedarim of his wife simultaneously? Proves the Gemara, absolutely not, because the oisa is dafka. And in case anyone was wondering, is this only a raya according to Rav Yehuda? The Mefarshim here explain that in reality the Tanakama agrees. Tanakama agrees to Rav Yehuda. Tanakama agrees that what? That really oisa is Gzeres HaKasav. Just the Tanakama felt that there's a svara behind, as we often have. We have psukim, and then we have svaras behind the psukim. So over here, the Tanakama is just giving us the svara behind the psukim. But everyone agrees to the drasha, and that is a raya to our shaila that you cannot be made for two nedarim simultaneously. We turn over to Ayin Gimel Lamed Beis with a fresh Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Boigeres, and this is going to be reminiscent of Meseches Ksubis. Says the Mishnah, Boigeres Sheshasa Yud Beis Chaydesh. A Boigeres that waits 12 months, and anyone that remembers, we actually had this a few days ago in Daf Samaches. And over there, the Gemara explains, it's not a Boigeres that waits 12 months. This is a din. Let's just remind yourself, after Erisin, they wait before doing Nesuin. And what happens? Tavu Ali Nasei. Either husband and wife get up and say, I want to get married. How long does the other party have? Says the Gemara in Ksubis, you have 12 months for a Naira, you have 30 days for an Almana, and a Boigeres, depending on her age, you have a short amount of time. Therefore, says our Mishnah, Boigeres, or one that has waited 12 months, as the Gemara in Daf Samaches has taught us that you have to put a Vav in there. Boigeres, or one that waits 12 months. Ve'almana, or an Almana Lamid Yom, after 30 days. The basic point being that we're holding at the point that their husband is obligated to support his wife, because his wife demanded the Nisuin, and the husband is not ready. So since the husband is delaying the Chasana, the halacha is that the husband is obligated in supporting his wife already now, even before the Nisuin. Rabbi Eliezer says Rabbi Eliezer, since the husband is chayiv in mizaynis in support, yafer, he has to as well, he's allowed to as well, be made for Nedarim. Says the Chachamim, no, until there's actually Nisuin, you cannot be made for the Nedarim. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba. So we have Machlekes, Rabbi Eliezer, and the Chachamim, if you have to wait till Nisuin or not. Says Rabba, I want to pin this Machlekes on a Machlekes that we had in Ksubis. Amar Rabba, Rabbi Eliezer, Mishnah Rishayna Amru. Says Rabba, Rabbi Eliezer, and the Mishnah Rishaynim taught, Davar Echad, it's now we learned in the Mishnah, Noisin Lebesula, Yud Beis Chaydesh. This halacha that we introduced the Mishnah with, we give a Besula 12 months, Lefarnes Atzma, to support herself. He go Yud Beis Chaydesh when 12 months come, Oicheles Mishaloi, Oicheles B'Tshuma. She's allowed to eat from the husband's estate, and if the husband's a Kayin, she gets Truma as well. Aval HaYavam, in a similar scenario of a Yavam, if a Yivama is awaiting Yavam and she demands to get married, what's the halacha? Says the Mishnah Rishayna, Einai Machal B'Tshuma, you do not feed Truma. Asa Shish Chadash B'Vnei Abav, Shish Chadash B'Vnei Yavam. Now this second half of this Mishnah, the half of the Mishnah that's discussing Yavam is not really our sugya. Let's just read it as the Gemara quotes the Mishnah in its entirety. If one waited 6 months for the husband and 6 months for the Yavam, or even if all the days, 12 months in front of the husband, and 1 day in front of the Yavam, or in front of the Baal, you only eat from Truma if you have a full 12 months waited by the husband. Zu Mishnah Rishayna. So what was the Nikuda of the Mishnah Rishayna that we're holding in on? Is that a Besula gets Yud Beis Chaydesh Lefarnes Atzma, and once the 12 months comes, what happens? Oicheles Mishaloi, Oicheles B'Tshuma. Beis Din Shalachreim Amru. A latter Beis Din came along and said, no, Eino Isha Oicheles B'Tshuma Shetikanis L'chupa. That no, a woman only eats Truma at what stage of life? Chuppah, Nisuin. So suggests the Rabbah, the Machlekes, Rav Eliezer, and the Chacham in our Mishnah, is the Machlekes, Mishnah Rishayna, Mishnah Achrayna. According to the Chachamim, that you need to kind of the Rishusai, that's like the Mishnah Achrayna. According to Tanakama, that after 12 months you get to be made for the Nedarim, that's like the Mishnah Rishayna. Says the Gemara, Amrle Abaya, Abaya rebuts Rava, and says nothing doing Rabba, Do not pin our Mishnah on the Machlekes Mishnah Rishon and Mishnah Achrayna for two reasons. Del Malay Yad Kan Lo Kama Ashminan Mishnah Rishon. We're going to give a svara in Nedarim and a svara in Truma. Ad Kan Lo Kama Mishnah Rishon Ela Michal B'Truma Dirabanan. Maybe the Mishnah Rishon only allowed to eat Truma because the din of Truma is the din Dirabanan. Avol Nedarim, which is the din Daraisa, Emaloi. Maybe you're not allowed to be made for the Nedarim. So maybe the Mishnah Rishona would not concur with the Tanakam of our Mishnah. The Mishnah Rishona would allow her to eat Truma, but would not concur with the Tanakam that allows her to be made for the Nedarim. Va'ad kan lo shamas leila Rav Eliezer ela gabi Nedarim. And now the flip side. Maybe Rav Eliezer only allowed his din by Nedarim after 12 months. Why? Because Rav Pinchas Mishmei Derava, which is going to come up again tomorrow. Damar kol anodares al das baila hino dares. Says Rav Pinchas Mishmei Derava, a neder is always made al das baila. So maybe that's the reason why Rav Eliezer is of the opinion that after 12 months, this Arusa is waiting to get married since she made the neder al das baila. Therefore, the husband gets the power to be made for her. But maybe Rav Eliezer would not concur that what? That she could eat Truma. Avol Truma. Afil midrabanan amiloi, says the Gemara. But maybe Truma, even midrabanan, we will not allow her to eat Truma after 12 months. Loi achla. So proves Abaya, Rabbi, you are wrong. Our Mishnah that said a machlekes Tanakama and the Chachamim, whether you can be made for Nedarim after the requisite 12 months pass, or we have to wait till Tikanis the Rishusah is not dependent upon the Mishnah Rishon and Mishnah Achrayna, because Abaya gives two different svaras, either because Nedarim are all made al das baila, or because Truma is a din derabanan and Nedarim deraisa. We'll pick it up on Daf Ayin Daled B'siyata Dishmaya in the next year.